Ranger that's made the academy stop in Abilene?
Well, I know that David Murphy was here once, and Mitch Moreland, which I mean, they were obviously not A-listers, if you wanted to use the term, but they were, you know, well-loved contributors to good baseball teams. So,
yeah. I'm not gonna lie, I was reading Nissan's text.
Yeah, you weren't listening.
Didn't have any idea what you said.
Yeah,
but we are glad that you're listening and heard what Josh said, and it's time for our Texas Rangers report. And Josh, I was talking with a buddy last night who's, I think this is the period where he says he gets to listen while he's dropping off his kids. So Hagler will give you the shout out. But he used the word, because again, I don't have the ability to watch the Rangers. And he said the Rangers are really fun to watch right now.
They are.
And it's one of those things. How early do you dot? How much do you treat it like a no-hitter on what you don't talk about? But the Rangers right now, leading the West, doing some really good things. Again, one of their best players in Seager, hurt, still doing this without him.
Mm-hmm.
How excited should we get NFL schedule released excited, or should we simmer down and enjoy and just don't overreact either way?
Well, I don't think it's like a good plan to overreact ever. Like you always have to keep it within the bounds of reason. And the old saying, I guess, in baseball goes is you don't even know what your team's like till Memorial Day. Like that's if your team's playing bad, don't freak out. If your team's playing good, don't go ahead and book your airfare for October. Like it's
well, in the Rangers of old, I say when we were growing up, and I think we were even a little older than the grow up, which I don't know if I've ever grown up.
Let's say it's very questionable.
Is the All-Star break. Used to the Rangers All-Star break was the halftime. They should have never gone into the locker room.
Right. There's a lot of falling apart. And long summer, hot stadium. They used to blame that. We don't have that excuse anymore with the air conditioning. So maybe that changes things. But as far as like what you're talking about, it's fair to be excited anytime that your team gives you hope. And that's really all that you can hope for, as far as in a baseball season, especially in April and now into May, is that like there are teams right now, that even going into the year expected to be fairly good, like the White Sox and the Cardinals that are just terrible. The Cardinals were playoff team last year, picked to win their division or be at least in the conversation, and the wheels have come off completely. So on that side, you could freak out, and not to say that they couldn't put it together, but as long as you're not in that bucket, things are pretty good as far as baseball goes. So but when you actually break down the way that the Rangers are playing, and as Coach Hagler said, they're fun to watch because they score a lot of runs. Their pitching is generally done okay, other than they have a drastic need to improve their bullpen. That's really
that was his exact words. Like
right.
The starting pitching is really good, but the bullpen is another story.
Right.
And are there people out there? I know we got trade deadlines that happen later on. Is there something you can do in the immediate? I mean, in football, you go out and if you have a bad kicker, you let him go and you bring people in to kick. I'll be honest with you. I don't know how baseball works. Are there people out there or trades that can be made that's not up to the deadline to add to your roster, or is that what the farm system's for?
Well, that's what the farm system is for. But if we looked at the Rangers farm system, like the depth of the farm system is pretty good. But there's really not a difference maker reliever that is ready to go to the majors. So, but the one good thing about being in the Ranger situation where their bullpen is their weakest link is that is the easiest thing to address on the trade market, because anyone who has a bullpen guy who's on his last year of his contract. Once their team is out of it and they're officially like, okay, like we're gonna load up for the future, you can usually get those bullpen pieces fairly for prospects, for minor leaguers, much cheaper than you can in the I guess the people capital, the talent capital is cheaper for that than like a corner bat, or a starting pitcher, like those just on that hierarchy, so when the time comes, the Rangers have the prospect depth to be able to trade, and there will be teams that have bullpen guys that are on the last years of their contracts that they'll look to improve their team in the future. There's several, and I'm not saying that Aroldis Chapman is the guy that you want to get, but he's pitching very well for Kansas City. Kansas City is terrible. They will trade him. It's just a matter of when. Now, he also had his little meltdown at the end in New York and threw a hissy fit and didn't show up to practice or whatever. Then they didn't put him on the playoff roster.
But I just don't think, and again, Aaron Boone's having a hard time. I say that. They would be right in the middle of the AL West if they were in that division. But I think Bruce Bochy is the kind of guy that there's so much probably respect for that I don't see Chapman being able to pull that stuff and get away with it.
So there,
and maybe even some respect, I'm not going to do that.
Right. And that's one of those things you have to at the team building part of it, because you can trade for bad people, just like might be talents on the field that are bad people that are then become detrimental to your team. So you got to judge the room, I guess, and see what they think the leadership's like for somebody like that. But there's other guys too. That's just one that he's really pitching well, and the Royals are terrible. So I think he will be a trade chip that's available, and he'd be fairly inexpensive compared to some other places. So all that to say, the Rangers' weak point is their bullpen, and I think that is the easiest thing to address through trades. So I look for that to happen.
And there's a lot more out there to go get.
Yes, because anybody who's at the end of their contracts with their current team, that team isn't going to be playing for this year. The timing of that is as soon as a White Sox with Liam Hendricks is another one. That he's a closer that he hasn't played much because he's been out. Actually, he coming back from cancer treatment, but like he's somebody that will probably be available. We need to see if he comes back strong enough and pitches well, which is obviously his overall health is the number one concern. But he seems to be recovering from that. So if you're the White Sox, if you're the Royals, if you're the Reds, the Cardinals, there's a few other teams, the Rockies, that you're falling out of it. It's not looking good. But the problem for controlling that goes is when those teams deal somebody, they're telling their fan base and their clubhouse, we're done for this year.
Right.
And so now the writing's on the wall in those places. They're done for this year. But
the PR move.
Right. So it's just as the summer comes in, those teams will start being like, all right, we've got to sell the fact that we got to get better for next year. Let's trade some pieces. And the Rangers have pieces to trade, but the on the field product right now, like we talked about, their offense is towards the top of the league. Their run score, their run differential is incredible. And if there's any other low spot, it's been their defense has been a little shaky at times. So they're not spectacular as far as defense goes, but they're mashing the ball.
Well, and the good thing is they're out on the West Coast. They've played Seattle. They've played the Angels. They've played,
and they took 2 or 3 in both those series. So 2 road series wins in the division.
And again, they've got the A's this weekend. They won last night 4-0. Seager. Now, one of the questions. So I guess to answer David Williams' question that's watching us on our Facebook Live, and again, you can check us out Facebook Live or YouTube. His question is what do the Rangers need to do to win the pennant? And I think obviously the bullpen addresses that. Getting Seager back is going to be big, but continuing to – that's the thing. And hopefully we're working on getting Colin Schooler. The Arlington Renegades went 4-6 in the regular season, made the playoffs, got hot, changed quarterbacks, and now they're on a run and playing for the championship tomorrow. Baseball is 162 games. You've got to find a way to continue that momentum and continue to play it well and not let anything be bumps in the road or anything like that, you healthy, got to stay healthy. And so to me, that's one of the biggest things is continuing that, add the bullpen help.
Well, and really what the Rangers have to do, it's really pretty simple. If they get to the playoffs, which at this point, they're winning their division through the first, quarter of the season, so there's a lot left, but if they can make their bullpen strong enough to get to the playoffs, if they're in the playoffs and DeGrom is out currently, and they initially said he'd be out for a couple weeks, and then they said he's going to be out for a couple more weeks, so that there's who knows what's going on with that and when that might, but it might be one of those blessings in disguise if he comes back healthy and is allowed to kind of work his way back in. But if the Rangers are in a playoff series with DeGrom and Eovaldi and Perez, all three healthy, they have a solid chance of winning that playoff series. Then you'd have John Gray, who's kind of night and day, hot and cold as far as when his starts. Like he's really good one time and really bad the next, or at least not bad but mediocre, I guess. So if they make it to the playoffs with that rotation, where then you can have Heaney and Gray either piggybacking a start or coming out of the bullpen. I think they would be a very formidable team to face off against in a playoff series, especially with a full strength DeGrom and any kind of strength that they add to the bullpen. So, that's the thing in playoff series. Starting pitching is the number one thing in a playoff series. That always is the case. So the rotation is the sort that can hang with anybody in that environment. You just have to put yourself in that position.
Right. And so love the XFL reference. Hey, thanks. Appreciate it, Dave. Appreciate you listening. Appreciate you guys listening to the Hodge Pack right here on 106.9 The Country Giant. Don't forget, Live at Lytle, they'll be ready next Thursday.